Let's bang on time. 5 o'clock, we started. Thank you all for being here. My name is Varuna. I am the founder and the director of Ruup Form Gallery that you're all sitting in. Today we are going to have a conversation with Ekta. Ekta Bagri is the artist whose work we're showing the installation called Faces of Flame. They're very interesting, unique pieces, and I would love to go through the journey with everyone here about the work and Ekta. And we're going to follow it up with Ruup, who's in the audience today, who's going to be doing a spoken word performance right after our talk. So we're trying to aim for about 30 minutes of the conversation, and we're open to Q&A, and Ruup is going to come in and do the performance, which is very closely linked to the work. So it's very exciting that he's here. We're not expecting any drills, so if there is an alarm, please head out. Help us after drinks. We're here just to have a nice conversation. So welcome, Ekta. Thank you for being here. Thank you for letting us show your beautiful work. It's been such an honor to spend this month with it. So it's been great. It's been really nice to have these calm, really serene faces. It's been a very calming effect on the gallery. And I think everybody who's walked in has just felt the peace and calm that the work has imbibes. Shall we start from the beginning? Do you want to tell us a little bit about your background? Where did you grow up?
Yes. So I grew up in West Bengal, in Kolkata, which is eastern part of India. And I have lived there until I was 18, and I moved to UK to do my bachelor's, and I'm still stuck here. Yes.
You love it here.
Yeah.
How did the journey to art start? Where did this love for ceramics come?
So the journey for art started because my mother always wanted to become an artist. She got married when she was really young. So she couldn't fulfill that dream, so she always helped me to do paintings when I was 5. So every time my father would come back from work, I would present him with a painting of, I don't know, anything random. And since then, I've been pushing myself to do painting, even in school. And my family does something very different, so it was obviously trying to break the boundaries of what is conventionally done in my family. And then I applied for a fine arts degree. And I applied in the UK because in India, when I was studying art in school, they would follow a syllabus book, which made me feel a little bit restricted, and it was all about painting. So I thought that maybe if I stepped out of this, maybe I can learn something more. So I went to do a fine art degree, and I tried every medium. And ceramic was something that it really resonated with what I wanted. It had my fingerprints, it had my touch, and it was a very intimate connection with a medium that I did not feel with any other medium. Yeah. That's how I went down the rabbit hole of ceramics.
Yeah. Still in it, but it's been a quite a different journey. Even though you are doing ceramics, it's more research based.
Yes.
And your current master's in archaeology is taking that forward. Tell us a little bit more.
Sure. So when I started doing ceramics, I applied for a master's degree at Royal College of Art. And it was still a bit new for me, so I started studying glaze chemistry. And I realized that, okay, the transformation of clay and glaze into a ceramic, it takes a lot of energy and resources. And that's when I realized that how myself as an artist can be aware of my environment, how can I take responsibility of my work. So I started doing research on how I can still make ceramics, but in an alternative way. So my dissertation was entirely on how you can make glazes with waste. And I was exploring waste that was just found around me and just testing them out. Maybe I could make a similar texture if I just used a banana peel. And then with that, I got interested to study the science of materials that pushed me to do archaeology.
Yeah. And you're now in Oxford working with a Japanese kiln. Very interesting way to discover ceramics because it's an ancient way of looking at it. But there's a bit of a twist in the way you guys are working.
Yes, big twist. Well, I went to Oxford actually to collect ash, and I'm still stuck there for 2 years. So basically, the site that I work with, they have these Japanese designed kilns, and we use wood to fire our ceramics. So it's a very manual, labor-intensive process. So you are in direct contact with fire. And so my current research is looking at how I can produce pots. Instead of firing for 72 hours, I'm firing in 15 hours or less, but using pallet wood. Yeah, that I've just collected from the street or B&Q or garden center. And we've established a connection with some wood suppliers who usually just pick up these pallet wood and throw them in the landfill.
Yeah.
So instead of going to a landfill, they're going to the site. And we just split them up and then make pots out of them.
But this is very interesting. I know sustainability is a big issue with a lot of artists, and we're always looking at circular design and how we can reduce our toxicity to the environment, make it more sustainable. So these kind of researches are really helping artists of the next generation. They're making everyone more aware of how you can make work that is more sustainable. And the constant query of it is very interesting. But you also want to be an artist in which I think that combination is very interesting in your case, where you're still approaching your work as an artist and you're creating work that is beautiful and meant for people's home, but you're adding this element, which is the constant question of sustainability and material in it. And do you find that quite taking away from your creativity?
I think the idea of research actually adds to my creativity because as an artist, I want to know why and why this material, why am I substituting this? And if I'm able to learn through research that, okay, maybe I could have used this, then it actually helps me to produce better and more efficient type of works. So, yeah, I think the current research at Oxford is a bit more on understanding materials to see how I can make an optimum strategy that not only produces ceramics, but is also not harming the environment. It's tricky.
Let's backtrack a little bit because this also started with a little bit. I mean, there's a master's where you're questioning material and you're questioning sustainability. And there's residencies that have all led to this. So it's been a nice, lovely journey. So let's start with the first journey, from the first residency in Kolkata.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us a little bit more about how you found this lovely artisan to work with?
Yes.
So I love the little story you were telling us about how you loved going there with your grandmom growing up.
Yes.
I think such an important part of how the culture has shifted into your you as an artist today. We can't run away from our culture in the past, and that plays into who we become as adults. So it's very beautiful that you've taken that into consideration.
So Kumartuli, or this colony where I worked with the artisan, it is somewhere that I would go with my grandmother as a child, and every year before the main festivities begin. So it was quite special to me because it's something that I've grown looking at. They would build 8 to 10 feet big sculptures. So this is a very minute face. I mean, you could see the power if you're in a car, and you could see the power of the sculpture just looking at you, and you would feel a protection. And then also, I think that's what was rooted in me.
Yeah.
When I did go back there, and I went back there with a question actually, because as I was in school and I learned how to do sculpting, I made a portrait sculpture, and the eyes of the portrait, my teacher said that no, you can't do it. Females are not allowed to make the eyes. So they took the sculpture from me to a male artist to make the eyes. So I went back to Kumartuli with this question to interview the only 4 female artists that's actually working there, to ask a bit more about their lives, how are they dealing with the taboos that comes along with this role. But it also felt appropriate to actually engage in their workshop too, and that's how I went up to them and said, can I just come and learn with you for 2 months? And they gave me the opportunity to build my own figure of a goddess and said, you make your own eyes.
Yeah.
So it was
That's
very
empowering.
empowering, yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's quite interesting because you've chosen a deity that is worship for strength. So I think it's quite a nice combination. She's called the Mother. Is that correct?
Yes, Mother. She's, we say Ma, Durga. So she is the mother of all gods, and she is the symbolism of feminine power and divinity.
So it's quite interesting. The women were not allowed the eyes.
Yes.
Not completed. So slowly but very surely, the power's been taken back by the community of artisans.
It is getting there slowly, I think. But I think people are realizing that their beliefs and the things that they thought were taboos were just also a belief system that came from a different time period, and things are progressing, and they're realizing the skills that female artisans have as well. So it's just incredible to hear their stories and their journey.
Do you want to, what was your favorite story of being there? What was your favorite part of going every day and spending this time? I'm sure they're not very large places full of clay all around you.
Yeah. It was amazing. I mean, you had a small room. Every day you would go in the morning. We would start with a tea, custom, and then just a small cup of tea, and then we would start with the work. So it would be very interesting. There's 100 things happening in one small room. So in one part of the corner, they are preparing snacks. Another part they are doing painting, and then another part they're mixing clay with their feet. So, and then there's a table in the middle of the room with pictures of gods. So
For inspiration.
And every now and then the priest comes in and gives blessings to everyone.
Wonderful. What a surreal space to work in. Full of creativity and spirituality, which comes through. I guess they are going towards it. So what made you choose this particular phase for the experimentation of installation?
So I picked this phase because I think it symbolizes a community that I was part of when I did my residency. It symbolizes what I learned from them. It's a design that I learned from them. So, and I think that this is the phase of a goddess that actually helps them make an income. And this is giving a new outlook to it and giving a new perception. And if I have the opportunity to learn from them and make my own work, I would.
It's very layered. There's feminism and empowerment. There's culture, and there's technique. So it's such a multi-dimensional way of looking at something, isn't it? And then you come in, and they've all been fired at the Oxford kiln, which is a only Japanese kiln. based in England, in Japanese style kiln, and where you're working with a very traditional kiln, but with materials that are not traditional for the firing.
Yes.
So it's like what I find interesting about it's like when you talk about mindfulness and how your day, if you start your day, 100 people have already been involved in your life without you actually having met anyone. This installation always makes me think of that thousands and thousands of people involved in the making of this, and then thousands of years of culture. Because that was followed up with your residency in Korea, and I'm going to try and get that right. Ongi.
Ongi.
Yes.
So I went to Korea to do ongi, which is basically a technique they use to make really big jars for kimchi. I didn't learn the recipe to make a kimchi, but I learned how to make a jar. That works. Maybe next time. But yeah, so with ongi, the idea and the main principle for the artisans there is that you engage with the local materials. Their kilns are built with volcanic rocks, which is very abundant there. So they are utilizing what's more regular in their surrounding to make work. And I wanted to learn a bit more about potting communities that are actually applying the principle of using local materials. And with ongi, we say it's a dance with clay, because when you're working with ongi, you're not using any tool. Your body is the machine. So you work with clay and you move it, but you have to watch where the clay is going. And then you use gravity to slam it, but not slam it that it hurts the clay, but you slam it to stretch it. So it was almost very, you developed this very intimate connection with the materiality of clay, that you understand which part is stretching, which part doesn't want to stretch. So you almost think that your clay is human, it's alive. And the way you treat it, it will respond back definitely.
I love the term dance with clay and treating clay as a human form, which is an extension of what they do in Kolkata in Komentar. It's the same concept where you're taking clay and making real human forms with it. So it's quite interesting how we relate to earth in such a tactile. And of course, it has its own memory, which you get through with your dance. And I would love for you to tell a little bit more about your residency in Japan,
Yes, Japan. I miss Japan. So in Japan, and I was doing a residency in Vietnam and Japan as part of the Japanese government project, JICA. They have this international project to restore art and culture in villages where the traditions are maybe dying. So I was working in a pottery village in Vietnam where they would make really big, beautiful jars, but it wasn't going anywhere. The market for them was dying. And that's when this project made a partnership with them to restore it. And instead of making really big things, they were making really beautiful, intricate dinnerware. So I was helping them to fire that because it was interesting that in Oxford we are always firing so hard to get ash glazes on it. But in there they didn't want any ash. So it's a difference of technique, but also they were using purely natural resources. That's the clay that they're finding around them, and the way that they would describe their clay is just, they would love their clay. They're trying to make work with it, and I'll never forget how one of the artisans from there told me that I'm not making enough money, but I feel rich because I'm following my passion. And I think I was in a space with artisans who were just sharing just their passion and not thinking about how much income they're making, but they're just coming there every day to make and be happy. Yeah.
So internalized happiness. How wonderful is that? That brings us back to this installation. One of the most beautiful things I've heard, somebody walked in and they said, does she work at giving them different expressions? And I thought it was so wonderful because I know what you were trying to do, which was, I know the work has come out of a mold, so they're all alike. And it is actually your glazing, the materials that you're using, where you're using the kiln, that's creating different expressions.
Yeah.
And that's what people are seeing, that they all look different. And that's so incredible, isn't it? That you've taken something which, with leaving one as a static and everything else you made a variable, and you've got so many different versions of it. Is that something that you thought of right at the beginning, that that's what it will do? Was that planned?
It basically, I think working with wood kilns, I've learned that any type of work you put in different parts of the kiln, you will get something really different. Even if it's the same size, same shape, but all of that depends on the way you fire them. So it's just the way they've been fired in the 3 different kilns, and they fired all very differently. Different types of pallet wood was used for each of them, and that really helped to get different textures. And I intentionally actually spread it out in a very different way, because firing them so often, I learned where the cold spots are and the hot spots of the kilns are. So I started manipulating those spots to put different types of masks to see what happens. So they were also a bit more of a learning process for myself to see how they are reacting in different spaces of the kiln.
And hence the name Faces of Flame.
Definitely.
When you see, like if I was to pick a couple, let's say that one, can you tell me what materials have gone into making that?
Which one?
Let's take that one, or you take your pick.
Okay. So that one is basically stoneware clay that I had placed at the back of the kiln. So the back of the kiln, sometimes it's really difficult to get even temperature because the flame is coming up and then going, but then your works are also in front, so that's really hot where it's getting great direct flame. But at the back it's just like meh, like just touch. So I use the back to test the glazes, and then the front it was more ash. So if you see this one, that is pure ash from the palette. So it's just it's just a really nice interplay of how you can work with kilns.
And do you get that conversation going right at the beginning when you have these molds in hand? Like, what do you want it to happen, or do you go with organic way?
I wish I could plan it out, but I think kilns, wood firing kilns are very humanly. I think it's very dependent on how you interact with it. So it is a bit of a chaotic mechanism where the way you respond to it, it will respond back. So at any point I could have a disaster with it, and maybe because my wood is too wet or anything, and that will affect my work. So, and 3 kilns that I used to fire these, they all responded very differently. Some kilns choked up with too much wood, so that means it gave me some darker colors in some of the work. That is really dark. Some kilns went really smoothly, so they gave me a bit more of these textures. So it's always varied on how you fire.
My favorites are the green ones.
Yes.
How do you get that?
So this green one It was a turquoise kind of a glaze that I put at the back, but it's got a marble like texture. It's not very shiny, almost like a matte texture, because the back of the kiln didn't hit the 1300 degrees temperature. So, but it worked.
Yeah, I have some other people ask me these questions. I'm going to ask you them. One was, which is your favorite in all of these?
Oh dear. I'm so sorry. You all are my favorite.
That's what I told them. You can't choose between your children.
I really like this green one. Yeah. It's a glaze called Ruup. The word is just really fun. It's called Ruup. But it is, I think the crispiness of the clay that piece shows, it shows how the flame actually paints over the sculpture, and then it shows the glazing as well. So it's kind of a combination of both.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. And the second one I was asked was, what would your tutor, your back in Kolkata, think of these masks?
Oh God. She will say redo them again because they all have cracks and they all make a really perfect mask, because they are going for religious ceremonies, they are going for rituals, so they always prefer really smooth face. And when I showed them one of my masks, they said, "Oh, maybe just put some more clay there, cover that." Like, sure.
No perfection. You want the imperfections to shine.
Yeah.
What's next for you, Ekta?
Next for me is, obviously, I'm going to continue with my research. I'm planning for a doctoral program in Oxford and UCL on ceramics and archaeology. So that's my next step, is to figure out with a combination of scientific analysis and experiments, so firing my work and comparing them with science, to see if I can find an optimum firing strategy to produce works.
Interesting. And sounds like in the depths of research. And definitely, knowing you a little bit, it feels like something you really love. So we hope to see exciting things come out of that one too. Shall we open up for any questions that you might have to Ekta? Don't be shy.
What about the name of the exhibit? Why did you choose that?
The name is called Faces of Flame because they were all placed in different parts of the kiln. It did cover the full kiln, but because they were placed in different parts, the flames interacted with them very differently. So, and I think that's why I considered them as more of a flame painting, and how flames were captured on each of the faces, and these faces were actually showing that.
I'm very relieved. I think it might have something to do with the practice of widows throwing themselves onto the funeral pyres. So
that's an interesting take on Sati versus that. That's a very dark, interesting take on that.
it's very dark.
Agreeably, yes. Anything else? Anybody else would like a question?
Why are the faces arranged this way? Is there a thinking behind the pattern?
So I think I'll have to take that. That's it's a curatorial creativity that I took control of. When Ekta had brought these pieces to us, and I suspected while she was making them back in Kolkata, they placed them very close together to dry them, and they were in neat rows and columns. And I know once before when she showed it to me, they were very neatly put together in these rows and columns. And she did tell me that she was interested in looking at them like that. But when I saw them, I saw each one of them as individuals, very unique pieces. And I wanted to separate and give them each life. The minute they fell in really neat rows and columns, they almost look like one piece rather than different faces. And by separating them, we could let each one of them breathe. And also by creating just disharmony in the presentation, you were forced into looking at each one of them individually. And I think it did its job. I think people have noticed it, and also the spaces calmed them down, haven't they? They just feel they're breathing.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't know if it's fully worked, but it did work.
I think it has. I think it's definitely given a new perception and a breathing space, as you say, to the work. And it's amazing.
Yeah, I think one of the first things was when you walked in, and the first thing he said when you walked in was, "Wow," and I was like, okay, Ekta's going to be okay. Yeah. So that was good. That was a big breather for me. Anything else for Ekta?
How long did it take you to make them at all? Like the process. I'm so interested.
Well, so because I think it all started with making the mold itself. So I had to first in the residency learn how to make this vase and then make the mold, which took me 2 months. Then once I made the mold, it was just press molding, making it with clay. But then making all of these took me about a week, and then drying, and then firing, which was, it happened between 3 kilns. So that took a while. That took a whole weekend. But then, yes, I think that's about it. But then I continuously made more molds as well. The main idea is to learn the process of the making of the face and then the mold. But once the mold is there, it's okay to press it. But then I was calculating if I could make it very even. Yeah.
It's very hard, isn't it? This question I find when people, when the question of how long does it take is such a hard question. But one is just the making process of it, which you can time. So this is how long it's going to take. 6 weeks, But then there's so much else that goes behind it. There's so many hours, not just the actual making, but the research and the learning and your masters. So it's very hard to quantify sometimes.
Yes, I think also with ceramics, they have the tendency to have their life, they like to break and not to cooperate, which I completely understand. I'm happy with that.
Considering the human form, sometimes you have to go back.
Exactly. So there were periods of just trial and error. Some pieces didn't work out in the first stage of firing. Some of them broke. So again, making them again. So it was a learning process and finding a way to actually have a concrete set of works.
Have you ever gotten to a point where you kind of lost passion for it? Because I heard you say you've tried every single medium, and also if you didn't ever lose this passion of wanting to actually see what you wanted to do, what kept that fire going for you?
I think, I'm just very curious about things. I'm just asking myself why. Why is this happening? So when I tried all different types of medium, I was still asking myself, do I really want this? Why do I want this? And what am I going to get out of it? For me, with ceramics, I was really enjoying the transformation and the alchemy that happens inside the kiln. It goes into something really different and comes out into glass. It's just amazing. So far, I haven't lost my passion because I think the more I learn about it, the more I feel that I don't know much and I want to learn more and more. I need to complete this, but I don't think I'll ever complete it.
That is wonderful. That the joy of learning will keep going. So hopefully it should keep the passion, and we'll have more work. Yeah. Yes, please.
Yeah, no, it's about. I get frustrated with kilns, whether they be electric or gas and all the rest of it. Do you ever get frustrated in that you're trying to get something and it doesn't work? Because I know I do, but are you really just enjoying what comes out? I mean, you can also get some very nice things that come out of quite accidental, but then trying to recreate it can be just as frustrating.
Yeah, I think with wood firing, it's very difficult to recreate any of these because everything is very different every time you fire. There's the weather that affects it, just moisture in the air, a lot of things. And frustration, I think doing ceramics, it teaches you a lot about the virtues of being patient. So if I see it broken, I'm like, okay, it's fine, I'll just start again.
I know the thing.
So, but in the beginning, when I started ceramics, all of my pieces would break. So sometimes for my exam in my bachelor's, I would just show broken pieces because I said, this is part of the process. But it's just, yes, I think I've learned to be patient with it and just accept its fate.
I like that a lot. But I think that's the thing with, there's a reason the kiln's called the kiln god. So
Yeah.
we could take one last question. And we would,
I'll ask a question. It's quite a broad question, but considering you're making this piece which really explores the goddess and divine feminine, how did it shape your understanding of womanhood and femininity in tradition and also in this day and age? It's quite hard to answer.
I think working with the ceramics, especially also in the community itself, it was really, I think it made me take my position as a women artist very seriously, because when you go to a potter's colony that's so male dominated, it's also difficult to get your position as a female artist in there. But seeing these women doing that, it gave me that inspiration. Even in Korea, Japan, there are traditions and a lot of gender dynamics into play in a lot of workshops. So, I think it made me believe a lot in myself that, okay, I really have to prove them wrong. And also wood firing in many Asian countries, it's considered to be something that male wood firers or potters do. So it is something that happens. So being a woman learning how to wood fire, which is also very labor intensive, I think, and also having many female students coming to fire, it's just a lovely community to be part of and understand my position as an artist. Yeah.
well, thank you so much, Ekta.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
You're welcome, and hopefully we will both grow together and do more things.
Hallelujah.
Thank you so much. I would now like to welcome Zuriel X, who's a multidisciplinary artist, and he will be doing something very closely related to the last question of motherhood and empowerment through the spoken word performance.
Yes.
He does many things. It's a long list. He does photography, collages, poetry. I'm forgetting quite a few. Yeah, but we are very pleased to have you. So please.
Hello, guys.